guys, hope you're doing well. My name is Emma and today we're going to be making this Colette Pullover by Sari Nordlund. Alright, so I'm super excited to knit up this piece because this is going to be my first Sari Nordlund knit that I do, and I'll be honest, out of all of her pieces I feel like I've picked the most kind of boring cable knit of them all. She has some really beautiful cable knits, lace knits, like gorgeous patterns. So as a designer, I've always wanted to knit one of her pieces just because they look so beautiful. But yeah, I chose the most like boring one of them all, but for whatever reason it just like gravitated towards me. I gravitated towards it. So here we are, we're going to make the Colette Pullover. Now, first impressions on the pattern is it's pretty well written. There's a combination of written instructions and charts to follow on this one. The written instructions seem like really crystal clear. There's plenty of like checkpoints where it refers to like stitch counts and things like that, and it always guides you on like your like kind of first couple rows of a chart to like what stitch you should be starting with, finishing with, type of thing. The charts, there's only a couple charts to work from. The like pattern itself is a very simple chart to follow. Like it's a cable and some eyelets, like there's not too much to it. I will say I have already started working on the back section, and I do find the back charts to be a little bit too like condensed onto one page. So they're quite a large chart, so in order to have them fit on one page, they've obviously like shrunk like the size of the chart down, which you would think would be fine. You can just like zoom in on it, but when I zoom in on the PDF, the text goes blurry, so it's really hard to actually see like what line I'm up to. So if you struggle with following like a chart and knowing where you're up to, you might want to print this one off so you can have like a ruler and just like slide up to keep count of your stitch count. But you only need to use that chart once just for a back section, and to be honest, you kind of get the hang of it quite quickly. So you know, I can kind of forgive it a little bit, but that's just a word of caution if you have trouble seeing small fonts like I did. There's also a call out in the pattern for a video tutorial. It is for another piece within the Colette family that would help guide you on that pattern. So I haven't watched it because I didn't find any issues with the reading the pattern or reading the charts, but that is also referenced in the pattern for you. I will also mention on like gauge and yarn usage. So based on the Ravelry notes, nobody can get gauge. I couldn't get gauge. I don't know how she got gauge, to be honest. And it also seems like a lot of people end up using more yarn than was what is called for, and it's potentially because it's like impossible to get gauge. But like, I don't know, it's just a word of caution. I'm not gonna lie, I am a little bit concerned that I might run out of yarn. I just kind of brought like a random rough sweater quantity of the yarn, so we'll have to see if I end up having enough or not. I also, because I can't get gauge, I'm having to make a different size than what I anticipated to make, so I don't know how that's going to affect like yarn usage. So yeah, I'm really concerned that I'm going to run out of yarn, so we'll see. The pattern calls for a fingering weight to be held with a mohair or a lace weight. She does also say that you can just use a single strand of DK in this pattern, and that's the option that I'm going for. It's also meant to be knit on 3.5mm needles, but there is no way it's going to be knit on 3.5mm needles. I don't know how she gets gauge, honestly, I just don't know. In terms of sizes, there are 9 sizes available. They are just numbered sizes from 1 through to 9. I am currently tossing up between sizes 4 and 5. There's quite a big jump between size 4 and 5. For whatever reason, there's like, the pattern jumps like 2 chart repeats in between those 2 sizes, whereas all other sizes, it just increases by 1 additional chart repeat. So I don't know why that is, to be honest. It seems a little bit odd, but it's making picking a size really challenging because the piece is meant to have 20 to 30 centimeters of positive ease according to the pattern. I'll be honest, I don't think anyone's really achieving that amount of ease. It looks quite fitted in the sample photos and most people's projects photos also look very fitted. But for me, based on my gauge swatch, if I knit size 4, I will have 15 centimeters of positive ease, so not quite enough. And if I knit size 5, I'll have 30 centimeters of positive ease, which is the maximum amount of ease. And since I haven't seen anyone's photos with a really baggy version with 30 centimeters, well, it looks like 30 centimeters of positive ease, I'm a little bit hesitant to make it that large. I don't know if it's going to look good on. So it's, yeah, I kind of have to do it like a little bit too small or a little bit too large. There's no like in between. So that's really frustrating in terms of picking a size, considering that jump. It's not like that for, like I say, all the sizes. Most of them just jump by like 1 chart repeat. So it's not as significant of a difference. And like, I don't know how to modify. I don't want to put enough brain power into like modifying the pattern to make it work for me. So I don't know. I'm just going to do one of those two. So in terms of construction for the piece, it is knit top down. It is a drop shoulder design, and it's knit in an all over cable and eyelet pattern. I think that's still technically referred to as like lace pattern, but it's like eyelets. Because it is a drop shoulder piece, the yoke section is worked flat, and then you connect and work in the round for the rest of the body, and the sleeves are also worked in the round. When you start, you'll just start with knitting a back piece, and it's kind of one of those like, what's the name of the shape? Like a triangle square. Anyways, you do like some increases. So you start with a small neckline, you do some increases, and then you just continue to knit down the full width of the back piece. You then pick up for your shoulders, so you knit those separately. You then do some like shaping to create like the neckline, and then you join the 2 front pieces, or those 2 shoulder pieces I should say, together, and then you continue to knit the front piece down until you reach the right length for your size, which will bring you just to like the underarm piece, and that's when you connect the back and the front together, and then you knit the body in the round, and once you reach the desired length, you just finish off with some ribbing. You then have to pick up your stitches for your sleeves, and you knit those down in pattern. There are some decreases along the sleeve to give a tapered decline, and then again you're just finishing with the 1x1 ribbing on the cuff, and then lastly you would pick up some stitches along the neckline, and you do a folded 1x1 ribbed collar to finish the piece off. In terms of modifications, I don't think I'm going to be making any. I think I'm just going to stick to the pattern to a T. The only tweaks I may end up making would be sizing related tweaks. I don't see myself changing anything else on this particular piece. Now, for my piece, I'm going to be using Drops Merino Extra Fine yarn, which is 100% wool. It's a superwash yarn. Now, I have this in the color number 06. I'm not sure what the actual color name is, because on one website, like the Drops official website, it was called, I'm pretty sure it was called taupe, but on the website that I purchased it from, it was labeled as being brown. I personally think this is a gray and not a taupe or a brown. So I don't know, but the number's 06 regardless, like that didn't change, and it looks like the picture. So whatever color it's meant to be is the color like I expected it to be. But anyways, this each ball is 50 grams and 105 meters, and I got mine for $5.19 per ball. Now, the needles that I'm going to be using, so I ended up deciding to go with a 4.5 millimeter needle. So I knitted up 2 gauge swatches. So I've got one here. This was on the 4 millimeter needles. So this is recommended size for the yarn weight, and I definitely like the look of my cables in this. I think they look really nice and crisp, but the eyelets aren't really like super noticeable. I also was looking at like the pattern like sample photo, and she's got such an open gauge on hers, so I was kind of like, maybe I'll size up and get a less dense fabric. And so this one is on the 4.5 millimeter needles. I don't think the cables look quite as neat and crisp, but the eyelets are a little bit more open. So I'm going to go with 4.5 millimeter needles to get a little bit closer to what the pattern initially intended. It's just, the fabric's just overall a little bit more stretchier, a a little bit less dense, as you would expect going up a needle size. So I'm going to use 4.5mm needles. The only other thing that you need for this project is going to be a cable needle as well. So in terms of skill level, the pattern doesn't specify any like skill level, but based on user ratings, most people have given it like an easy kind of rating on the piece. Looking at the pattern and the charts and things like that, it is pretty straightforward, so I would agree that it's probably going to be pretty easy. You would need to know how to read charts. You need to be able to do increases and decreases, both like knits and purls. Be able to pick up stitches for like your sleeves and collars, and do cables and yarn overs for the like charted pattern work as well. So yeah, overall I'd say this is going to be a pretty okay pattern for anyone who's wanting to do like a first time cable work or like reading charts kind of piece. I think this one will be okay to pick up and do. Now, in terms of format of this video, this is by no means a detailed tutorial on how to make the Colette pullover. This is just me taking you along on my journey of making this particular piece. I'll have the pattern link down below, along with any like tutorials or anything that I used throughout that I found useful. They'll all be down below for you as well if you need any tips. Otherwise, if you like these kind of knit along videos, do give us a like or subscribe, because I've got a bunch more on my channel, a bunch more coming up. I'm like overwhelmed with like work to do at the moment. I have so much yarn for so many patterns. It's insane. So if you like these, subscribe. When I release them, you can get notified and watch them. But that's enough rambling for now. Let's get into making the Colette pullover. Alright guys, so I finished all my increases for the back section now. I did pause and block this just so I could kind of grasp how big we're going to get, because this back bit is basically going to be half the width. So I'll be able to work out my ease from this. Now I did intend to knit the size 5, but I stopped at size 4. Thankfully they share the same chart, so the only difference between 4 and 5 is that you'd continue to do some more increases down here. But yeah, I paused at size 4 just to sense check and make sure that I was happy with it before I continued. And to be honest, I think I'm going to stick to size 4. So this will give me 15 centimeters of positive ease. If I continue up to size 5 is another 2 chart repeats, which is kind of annoying because all of the other sizes, it's like 1 chart repeat, but for whatever reason, the jump between sizes 4 and 5 is 2 chart repeats. So it makes the ease jump up quite significantly, because 2 chart repeats on my piece is about 9 centimeters. And that's just on 1/2. So you've got to double that. So it's 18 centimeters more ease if I go up just 1 size. Like, that's quite a significant jump. So if I was to go up to size 5, I would have about 32 centimeters of positive ease. So it's a little bit more than the pattern suggests. The pattern suggests 20 to 30 centimeters of ease. But looking at the project photo, like the sample photos and people's project photos, it doesn't seem like anyone's going to the upper limits of the ease. It seems like most people are getting like 10 to 20 centimeter range of ease, and like the sample photos don't look like they've got that much ease on them either. So I laid this on top of one of my other projects that I've just finished, and it lays perfectly the same width. And so trying on that piece, I'm kind of like, you know what, I think 15 centimeters positive ease is going to look fine in this particular pattern. So I'm going to stick to size 4. So basically all I've got to do next is, so this is the increase section done. So this is going to be where we pick up for the neckline, and this is where we'll pick up for the shoulder panels. And so for the rest of the back section, we basically just continue to knit down until we reach a certain length, maintaining the pattern there. So that's what I'm going to do now. Let's just continue on this back panel. Alrighty guys, so I'm almost done with this chart on the front. I've just got to do the eyelet rows, and then once I've done that, I think I'm going to block this piece very quickly just in some water, just so I can get an idea on the length of this armhole here. Because it's very like scrunched up, and this is one of the measurements. She gives you measurements for the back and like the front. I'm not exactly sure where on the front I'm meant to be measuring from, but she also gives you a like an what do you call it, circumference measurement. So that's what I'm going to kind of go for in terms of when I want to join in the round, and that will be my yoke section done. Also, the other reason I want to give this a quick block is because I unraveled my swatch and used that ball of yarn, and the swatch bit was very crinkly. So it probably could have done with like a pre-wash before using, but you can see it's like all crinkly in my work there. So I want to make sure that that's going to block out and look okay, because this is the front piece, and so it's going to be like super duper visible if that crinkle doesn't kind of come out or the stitches look weird or anything like that. But like you can clearly see the section like just here, which contains the swatch yarn, and then it's gone straight again because the rest of the, I'm just tapping into the rest of the ball. So I want to make sure that comes out. If it doesn't, I will have to rip back the entire front bit to where I changed to this new yarn, which is just, you can see here where I've tied it on the end. I'll just have to rip that back. I'll have to wash the yarn, dry it straight, and then redo it to prevent any ugliness. And I've got two swatches as well, so I've got another ball with a swatch attached to it that I'll have to unravel too, so we'll see if it's going to work out or not. Alrighty guys, so this has had a quick bath and it's now dried, and I have just pinned together the two, the front and the back piece to get an idea of how this is fitting. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm really in two minds about the fit of this piece. It's hard to tell how this is actually going to fit because I just don't have much of it. But at the moment I feel like it's fitting a little bit small. And this is blocked as well, because a lot of people will be like, yeah, it looks small, but when you block it, it relaxes out and it looks so much better. But like, I have just blocked it and I'm still feeling like maybe it's a little bit small, but I don't know, it's so hard to tell because like this neckline is super wide currently, and when you add the collar onto it, it's going to really like cinch it in. And then when you add sleeves, that's going to like weigh this section down, right? But I just don't know if this is enough of a drop shoulder. Like even when I stretch this out to its maximum, I'm like, is that really enough of a drop shoulder? Like, I feel like this triangle bit in everyone's like project photos and the pattern photos are more like way down here. Like, it's quite like dropped down, and I just don't feel like I'm quite getting that with this piece currently. But if I do kind of look at the body width, it is like, it's got enough ease. I reckon it's got enough ease on the body. I just don't know if it's drop shouldered enough. But then again, it's like hard to tell because this is such a small bit of fabric. I feel like as you knit down, like if the cables aren't being stretched out by like this top bit's going to be stretched out because of the weight of the sleeves and stuff like that. But the body section is probably going to cinch in a little bit because there's nothing weighing on the cables, if you get what I mean. So it's probably going to have a little bit less positive ease, or look like it's got less positive ease because it's going to naturally cinch in a little bit because of the cables. But yeah, because I haven't used this yarn, this is superwash yarn, so I don't know if it's going to stretch over time as I wear it, or if it's going to kind of stay like this. Because again, like, it's super stretchy. Like, I can stretch this out and get like heaps of ease in it. Maybe I just need to aggressively block it. Maybe that's going to be the answer. I don't know. Anyways, I was thinking about, like, I'm either going to have to continue with this as is and risk having it fit a little bit more snugly than I maybe want, or I can rip back and start again. I don't want to go up a size because the next size up has 2 full cable repeats, and that's going to make it look too big in my opinion. But I could just add 1 additional cable repeat on the front and back, and it just means I need to extend out like the cast on edges by another chart. And I was looking at photos of the neckline, and the neckline is very like up and fitted. So having it a little bit wider, I don't know, it might maybe look a little bit better anyways if I do that, and then I get like that 1 extra chart will give me a little bit extra length. I don't know if it's going to solve the drop shoulder look situation. It might, because then it'll be a little bit, well, I don't know, because this bit still just doesn't seem like long enough, this shoulder piece. But then I also can't even extend the shoulder because that would require an extra, like that if I sized up, the shoulder would be longer, right? And more of a drop shoulder, but then I have to add 1 chart to each side. So that's 2 charts, and then it's going to be too big. And I wouldn't want to then eliminate a chart from like the center, because then the neckline's going to get too small. So I don't know. I don't know how to fix this. I might have to look at the other chart, because there's 2 back increase charts, and see if maybe I can make a size work using the other back increase chart so that I get more increases without, yeah, I have to, how's it going to work actually? I don't know if it would work. I'll have to read through I'm going to have to read through it and do some math and just see what the difference is between the different sizes and things like that, and see if I can maybe custom a fit. But I think, I don't know, do I start again or do I keep going? Okay, it totally turns out there is a size 4.5 in this pattern, and I don't even need to modify like anything. The stitch counts just aren't included in the pattern for whatever reason, but the size is totally there and exists. So I don't have to modify any cast on edges or anything like that. I can just follow all the pattern to a T. I just have to stop at a different increase row on the back chart and pick up a different number of stitches for the shoulders. But in terms of like pattern repeats, there is a size 4.5 that is just 1 cable repeat bigger than this size, which was size 4. So what I'm going to do is follow the other set of charts, which is the sizes 1, 3, 6, 8, that chart group. And basically for this back bit here, we just keep going until row 44, and that will give us one additional cable repeat than what we have here. And then for the shoulder seams, you just have to pick up another couple stitches, but you follow the same set of charts for that size group, so the 1, 3, 6, 8 size group for your pickup shoulder here, and you don't need to change anything else. So you cast on the same amount of stitches and everything else, you just stop at a different point on the back, and that's it. So you can still follow the pattern basically to a T. I don't understand why it's not already included in the pattern. So this is technically a 10 size pattern, not a 9 size pattern. Right, so I'm going to rip this back because we are following a different chart to what I've already got here, so I can't actually save any of the work that I've already done. So I'm going to rip it back. We're going to wash the yarn, try dry it straight, because last time I used my gauge swatch yarn, I did block it. It did mostly block out, but you can still see there's like a little bit of unevenness from the crinkly yarn that I use. So I want to try and get this washed yarn as straight as possible again. So that when we reuse it, it's going to look like nice and neat and tidy. So let's get to unraveling. And here's the noodles that I'm left with. You can see they're like very, very crinkled. So we'll have to see how much of that crinkle we can get out of this yarn. I don't know how well it's going to do. This is already looking better. I think I've made the right decision. Alrighty guys, I've started on the sleeve and I'm not gonna lie, I'm having some doubts with the sizing. So for my armhole, I ended up stopping at, I think I was meant to have like an armhole gap of like 51 centimeters, and I think I was like 49 centimeters or something like that. But I was basically measuring across the front of my work and counting how many chart repeats that many centimeters would equal, because I was like, that should be how many chart repeats I kind of do on my sleeve, sorry. It doesn't quite work out like that. So when it came to picking up stitches, I ended up picking up the same number of stitches for size 5. So I have like 12 chart repeats on my sleeve, and I have worked the decreases right from the get-go, which I'm kind of thinking is not a good idea. So the decreases, you'll basically end up eliminating one chart repeat with each round of charts that you end up doing. So I cast it on for 12 charts. By the time I get to the next repeat, I've got 11 charts. Does that make sense? Hopefully. And I'm just like, and I'm looking at it, and it's looking very cinched because it is cable. But even if I stretch it out, like I'm like, sleeve's not that like large, to be honest. I was expecting it to be coming out a little bit bigger than what it is. So I feel like working in decreases in this first chart section is not a good idea. Maybe I have to work them in like the second chart that I end up doing. And then also, I don't know if I need 3 or 4 chart repeats for the length of my arm. I was thinking I'm probably going to end up doing 4. So I'm going to block this because I want to see how this is going to relax out and look better. This is also, I'm noticing this puff because I've got this extra fabric that's like sitting here, but it's hard to tell on fit because I blocked this kind of top part, and then like some of this bottom part in the sleeve is technically unblocked, even though this is like reclaimed yarn. So I'm like, does it mean it's is it going to stretch out more? I don't know. So yeah, I'm just like not loving how it's all looking. It's meant to be more like, I don't know, like, I don't know what I'm expecting it to be like, to be honest. It's so hard to kind of tell. And then I'm also just looking at how dropped the shoulder is. And I'm almost wondering if I've gone too far with my sizing. I don't know. I feel like the body's going to be fine. You can see it's going to be like quite oversized, but because of the cables, it's going to like cinch in. But I don't know. I'm just like panicking. And to be honest, now that the sleeve is attached, like just looking at it, I'm like, the 4 would have finished kind of where this join is. I did end up following different charts, so that join is not technically in exactly the same spot that my other one would have been. Oh, is it? No, it's still the same length down, so I guess that would still be right. Basically where this join is where size 4 would have come to. So 4.5 is just giving me like an extra, like centimeter, maybe 2 centimeters of drop on the shoulder. So to be honest, I feel like if I just left it as is, it probably would have ended up looking fine. I don't know. I'm having so many doubts right now. I do not want to start this again. But yeah, this sleeve, I don't want it to be super fitted because then it's not going to align with the fit of this sweater. Also, if this blocks out and it still looks too small or looks weird, I might have to rip back this body bit and continue to knit the front and back down just a smidge more and then rejoin it again. That's another option to get like a deeper armhole and to then get a little bit more circumference on the arm. So let's block it and let's see how we look afterwards. I'm not sure about this sleeve. To be honest, this is coming out a little bit bigger than I anticipated, like on this body, and like the shoulder has dropped so much more than I thought it would. So look, could we have just stuck to the size 4 right from the get-go? Absolutely, we could have. But yeah, I just feel like the sleeve is probably a little bit narrow. It's still like kind of these cables are like cinching in. I didn't like aggressively like block it or stretch it out or anything like that. And I feel like if I do aggressively block it, it will look a little bit better if they just open up a wee bit more. I feel like that's my main problem that I'm having with the sleeve. But I do think, I don't know, I'm also just wondering actually if this armhole depth is even like deep enough, or should it be like more, like, would it look better if it was more like down here? Would that look better? But then when I fold it, it's just like more fabric that's gonna like bunch. I don't know. What am I going to do? Alright, new yarns arrived, so we can finish this off. Alright, and here's my finished Colette Pullover, all done and dusted. I'm actually pretty happy with the results from this one. I'll go through all my likes and dislikes in just a second, but first of all, I'll give you a summary on this. So it did take me 142 hours to knit this piece, and I did that over the course of 12 weeks, which is actually pretty good because I think about some of the past projects that I've done. Usually it takes me around about 3 months to get a piece of this size done. And considering that I did my yoke twice and then I ran out of yarn and had to wait for more to arrive, still get it done in that 3-month period, it's pretty good in my opinion. So I'm fairly happy with that. I did end up only using 14 balls of yarn. I did end up purchasing 15, so I have 1 ball left. However, I did think that I was going to do another like half chart on the sleeve length, but when I started doing that, it was just coming out a little bit too long, so I ended up ripping back and just stopping at the eyelet round. If I had done that additional half chart, I would have tapped into that last ball and I would have had just the perfect amount of yarn, but now I've got 1 left over, which is kind of annoying. But anyways, considering I did use 14 balls of yarn plus the pattern, this came to a total of $85.98 Australian to make, which is pretty good, I think, for a jumper like this. I'm fairly happy with that. In terms of things that I ended up changing from the original pattern, main one was the sizing. So, you would have seen all my talking on the actual sizing. So I did end up doing size 4.5. So to achieve that on the back chart, I followed the sizes for, it was like 1, 3, 6, whatever, that set of charts. And then I knit to row 44, I think it was. I will have to update my Ravelry and make sure that it's written down on there for you. And the only other adjustment I had to do, so the cast on edges, everything remained the same. I just had to adjust my stitch count for the pickups for the shoulder piece, you still follow the same chart and everything like that. You just need to make sure that you're picking up the right number of stitches, considering that you're doing like a in-between size. It's not, the stitch count's not listed for that shoulder. Otherwise, yeah, you're following the same size group charts for that shoulder piece, and it all works out perfectly fine. So you don't actually need to do too much math to get the sizing to work. In terms of depth, I just kind of guessed and winged it, and then I ended up picking up 96 stitches, I think it was, for my sleeve, which I'm pretty sure is for like the larger sizes. There might be one bigger, there might be one smaller. I can't remember what all the stitch counts were on that, but I think that was the same number of stitches for, I think, maybe size 5. And so that's how much I ended up picking up for my sleeve. So that was the main change that I made versus pattern. The other tweaks I made were just really design preferences of mine. So I ended up doing twisted rib on all of my finishings, on all the ribbing, on the sleeve and everything as well. I really like it. I think it looks really good. I was a little bit concerned when I first started doing the ribbing whether or not I would like the twisted rib look. But I actually think it suits this particular piece really, really nicely with that twisted rib. I think it's really crisp and nice. I also opted for tubular bind off on my finishings. So you can see it's just nice and crisp and rounded there. I did size down to 3mm needles when doing my setup rows. And because I've done twisted rib, you do have to retwist your setup stitches before you do the sew and bind off. I have a video link down below for one that I followed, but that's how you do the tubular bind off on a twisted rib. It's a slightly different setup. Well, it's not different setup, you just have to do an extra step to retwist stitches. So I did that. I did start my sleeve on an eyelet round. The pattern's meant to start just from the start of the chart here, but I had read someone else's one. They were like, oh, sleeve's just not quite the right length, it's a little bit too short, so I wish I had done the eyelet round just to get an extra like centimetre in. And I always end up knitting my sleeves longer than the pattern, so I was like, I'm definitely going to start with the eyelet round. Any extra length for me would be good. Turns out I actually ended up knitting the sleeve to the pattern otherwise, so there's 3 chart repeats called for in the pattern. That's what I ended up doing for my sleeve. But I did, like I said, I did the ribbing on the end here just a smidge longer to get the length to kind of like where I wanted it to. But those are the only mods that I ended up making to this piece. It's otherwise it is knit in the DK weight yarn versus the fingering plus mohair, but I mean that's not a mod because it says the pattern tells you that you can do that, but I think the pattern is a line. And talking about the pattern, my thoughts on that pattern. I would say that it is a very like well-written pattern. It's like crystal clear. All the charts are very easy to read. It's very easy to follow overall. So I would recommend it from that standpoint. I wouldn't recommend this pattern though because the gauge, impossible to meet. Like if you read the Ravelry notes, everyone's like, I could not get gauge. And like I really struggled particularly with using the DK weight yarn. It's meant to be knit on 3.5mm needles, but the like gauge is super duper loose if you like look at the sample and everything. And I'm like, that's just not mathing for me. So I don't know how she's achieved that gauge for the sample piece, but no one's gonna meet that gauge. So that does mean if you are going to be making this piece, you want to do a gauge swatch beforehand because you're otherwise not going to be able to pick a size because those sizes are based on the impossible to meet gauge. So that was an issue that I had from the get-go because I buy yarn based on a pattern, so I didn't have any lying around at the point of like initially buying this yarn. I do now, I have quite a stash, but at that point in time I didn't have any DK weight floating around that I could do a gauge swatch on before then trying to buy some yarn. The other part to that as well is even if I did do a gauge swatch and I was like, oh, I need to actually make a size or 2 bigger than what I'm into, like, you know, what I would normally for what's recommended, the yardage for those sizes is inaccurate as well. So even if you are like, oh, I'll just pick a size up or 2 sizes up, the yardage is not going to be accurate. So because of that, I would say if you are going to make this pattern, pick a yarn that's very easily accessible to you, that you can just pop down the road, maybe buy some more of, or only pick it up if you've got like a massive collection of like yarn in your stash that you know that you're not going to run out of yarn, and therefore it doesn't matter that the sizing and the recommendations are all off. I did, like, some other people on YouTube had said, like, if you're doing a test knit for Sari Nordlund, she only gets you to do like the yoke and like one sleeve, and that's why the yardage is normally off. And that concerns me because, like, to be honest, I was so super excited to be doing a Sari Nordlund pattern because she has some really beautiful like lace and like textured pieces, and I would love to do another piece from her. However, because of the issues that I've had with like sizing and yarn usage, I'm totally put off picking up another Sari Nordlund pattern. To be honest, I don't think I will make another one. But yeah, that's just me. It's really disappointing because, like I say, she's got some beautiful stuff, but it was just a frustrating experience, and it's such a shame because the pieces look good in the end, and it's a well-written pattern. It's just like, get things accurate. Like, seriously, it's not that hard. Well, maybe it is. I don't know. I'm not a pattern designer. But anyways, so that's my thoughts on the pattern. So ultimately, I don't think I would recommend it. In terms of like skill level for the pattern, I think overall the piece is relatively like advanced beginner friendly. If you've kind of like made a jumper before, or like you've at least got your like knits and purls down and you kind of roughly know how to do a cable and like a yarn over, this piece will be fine for you. It's like, it looks nice, but there's only like, you know, every now and then that you're doing like cable twists or like your yarn overs for your eyelet rounds. Otherwise you've just got these like kind of big chunks which are more or less just stop neck stitch. So it's pretty straightforward, easy knit. It's not like anything that's too complicated or anything like that. So yeah, that's my thoughts. I'm gonna say I don't recommend the pattern, is what I'm gonna say. Anyways, let's go over likes and dislikes. To be honest, my dislikes aren't necessarily dislikes. I think it's more things I would just do differently now having made one of these. Ultimately, I think this piece looks great. My favorite thing about this is actually the color, which is nothing to do with the pattern or anything like that. I guess it's still valid because color is such an important decision when you're like making a garment, because you want to be able to wear it. But I have nothing that is this kind of slaty grey color in my collection, so it's kind of different to other things that I have. But I also I think it suits my skin tone really well, and I really like how it looks on. Did wear it to the office. I think it looked great. I was really happy with that. The yarn, it's not the warmest yarn. I think I touched on this at some point as well. It's kind of like cooler to the touch. When you're wearing it, it does feel very comfortable, but it's not super warm. Like, I was able to walk around with my coat on top of this and not like sweat. I also wore this in the office, and the office is like super heated. And again, I was like perfectly fine. It wasn't like too warm, which could be a good thing, but could also be a bad thing. So I guess it depends on what you're looking for. But this is like, it looks like a really heavy knit, and it's going to be really super toasty, but it's not. It's just like a comfortable level of toastiness, if that makes any sense. So I don't know how I feel about the drops yarn, but I do love the color on it. Other than that, like, I love the all the texture on this. I also really enjoy that all of my sections finish on an eyelet round. Everything is nice and even in terms of the pattern. The bit that does annoy me though is on the back here, is that this seam here doesn't align to like where this join is up here. Because when I was doing the size 4, although the starting position was a little bit different in terms of where the cables actually, the columns I should say, but the piece finished right where these two joined, and it looked really nice and crisp because your this seam would have sat like right across here and it would have just like looked really nice, whereas now mine, like, this got this extended line down here and then we have the seam. I don't know, that's just a really like personal thing that it kind of annoys me that happened, but like it's unavoidable because basically when you're sizing up, you're just knitting like more and more increases down here, so you end up just getting more and more further down and you'll stop at different points in this cable repeat. But yeah, that kind of annoys me. Thankfully it is on the back, so I don't have to look at it, so it doesn't bother me too much because I don't see it every time I like look in the mirror. The other thing is my needle size. I ended up knitting this on a 4.5mm needle because I was trying to get gauge, but I did do swatches on 4 and 4.5s, and I will say the cables looked a lot more like tight and like neat on the 4mm needles, but the eyelets looked better on the 4.5s, and I ultimately went for the 4.5s because I was like, I want to also be able to see the eyelets on this, otherwise it kind of defeats the purpose of it a little bit. But if I was to do it again, I would strongly consider doing like a 4mm needle with this particular yarn, because I just feel like those cables would have looked like a little bit more like cinched in and like skinny and just a little bit more like crisp, whereas having like a larger stitch, I don't know, that's, again, it's a very like nitpicky thing on that, but that kind of annoys me a little bit too, and is something that I probably would have considered next time. The only other thing that's a little bit of a dislike, and I don't know how I would improve this, is the overall fit of this. So because it's a drop shoulder, I do think my shoulder ended up dropping a lot more than I actually anticipated. And I think it's dropped more than what the pattern anticipates too, because like I said before, typically I'm always making my sleeve a lot longer than what the pattern calls for. But I actually knit the 3 repeats that the pattern called for. I didn't add any extra length on. I only added this extra bit here with the eyelets. So I did anticipate that I was going to do another half pattern, but then I changed my mind on that. So because I've knit the sleeve to pattern, that tells me that the shoulder, my starting point, is probably a lot lower than what it's meant to be. And that could be what's kind of contributing to like the fit and this kind of area on the front being just a little bit weird. I feel like this is, it looks fine, but I feel like because of that fit, I'm putting this as like a hair down type of jumper, not a hair up jumper. Let me know if you have jumpers that are like this as well. But having my hair down just kind of covers this bit a little bit, and then I think it looks like perfect. But if I had my hair up, I don't know, this fabric here just, because there's a lot of it like kind of sitting here, I think that's what it is. I don't know. I don't know if it's like ratios as well. I don't know if maybe I should have picked up more stitches for my sleeve, because this cable does cinch in quite a decent amount. And like you can see, like my actual body section is very wide, but mine definitely cinches back in. If you look at the sample, hers is a little bit more like drapey, naturally so, given that we're using different yarns. So I think that's more like my yarn choice and maybe modified sizing. I don't know. I don't know how to actually improve that. But yeah, it's definitely not a big enough deal for me to worry about it. It doesn't bother me enough to be like, oh, like I don't want to wear it because if it's not quite perfect, I think it looks good with hair down. It looks great. So yeah, I think that's about it for my Colette pullover. Ultimately, I'm very happy with this particular piece, like I say, mainly because of the color. But it is nice to have a jumper that is finished in winter time, so I can actually get some wear out of it. I did chuck this in the washing machine. It washed up perfectly fine, but we will have to keep an eye on how much this stretches over time because it is a superwash yarn. We'll see if it gets any more like baggy or anything like that. At the moment, I am enjoying the fit. I will say the sleeves did end up cinching up a little bit as I wore it. I think when I washed it and I was like laying it out flat, I did kind of stretch out the sleeve like this, but I didn't pin it in place or anything like that. So I just kind of let it dry naturally. And the sleeve was sitting like, it sits right on my, like just below my wrist, right? And then it kind of cinched up a little bit and it sits like, it finishes right on my wrist at the moment. So it's not an annoying like length. If it was to get any shorter, I would be a little bit pissed off because it'd look too short on my arms. So yeah, that's interesting that happened, but we'll just keep an eye on how this ends up wearing. I think the yarn's going to wear fine over time. It's just how much it's going to stretch. We'll have to see, but I reckon I'm going to get some good wear out of this. The only disappointing thing is really that this is probably going to be my only Sari Nordlund pattern that I end up making, just because I now have too many trust issues around how much yarn is required and what size I need to make, and even if my size is in the pattern, why isn't it in the pattern? If it is in the pattern, does that make sense? I don't know. Anyways, I've been rambling on for ages at this particular point. I don't think I've got anything else to say about my Colette Pullover, but yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed watching this whole entire process. It was a process, and if you did, do those YouTubey things, and I've got a bunch more project videos coming up. If you want more real-time updates, I also do like a monthly check-in as well, so that will be a little bit more real-time on some of these pieces. So do whatever you need to do if you want to do it. Otherwise, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye guys. Why is everyone driving like trucks today? People on their motorbikes. Wait for the aeroplane to go past. Okay, hopefully there's not too much noise. The Grand Prix is on. Oh, I can hear the aeroplanes. I can see the fucking aeroplanes. There's like 7 of them. Oh my gosh, can you hear all that noise? Someone is trying to jumpstart someone else's car down there.